Okay, I just got done watching Obi Wan Kenobi Episode 5, but before I get into review, I just want to go into something called setup. Now, what is setup? Well, it's what a writer or director, well, any storyteller, what they do to simply set up a story. It makes you understand the world, it makes you understand the characters and the story. So I know a lot of the Star Wars world has been a little upset at the previous episodes of Obi-Wan, saying that they didn't understand some aspects of the story or characters, or that they like certain aspects of the story, who they are, or why they're there. Well, it was all part of a setup. And why I think that's what made part 5 of this Obi Wan Kenobi series work. So let's break it down. And let's start with the villain of all villains, Darth Vader. We didn't get to see much of the Dark Lord in the first couple episodes, but the writers and director set this up very, very nicely. This was actually the first time since Rogue One where I was actually afraid of Vader. And they did an excellent job to make us feel how cruel, how twisted, and how villainous Vader really is. And I actually had fear when he came on screen. And in this episode, it sets up the tension of Vader, and I think it made him a dark and frightening presence every time that guy walked into a frame. Now, that doesn't happen in one scene. It doesn't happen in one episode. It happens all in character setup. And I'm glad that they took their time on that and paid it off slowly and through time. So next, Tala. And she's introduced as a spy, and we get to see her develop as a character and her why she is doing this throughout the episodes. And her scenes throughout the episodes really builds up on this setup. And I ended up caring for her. I ended up rooting for her. And I actually wanted more of her. And in this last episode, without giving too much away, I ended up really on the edge of my seat when danger fell her way. But the most important thing is that she's there to remind Obi-Wan that, and she did it in a way where it wasn't just a tell, but this whole time she's been showing both Obi-Wan and the audience what real sacrifice is, and gives Obi-Wan as a character that push that he needed to make his character arc work. Remember, he's been out of the loop for 10 years and he's been pretty much in PTSD and stressed out and kind of depressed for 10 years. And again, this happens through setup. Leia. Now, Leia is a more simple setup, at least for this episode, but she was set up as an independent character, and she's still a child, but just as her grown-up counterpart, she's a fighter, and she can deal with pressure at the right moments. And even though we don't see a lot of her in this part 5, her character gives the right amount when it's needed, when she's needed. And when given a stressful task, we know that her character would naturally be put in that situation, and that's developed over time. It's been set up over time. And with her and Kenobi's interactions throughout these last 4, now 5 episodes, again, it was a perfect setup leading to this episode. And Anakin, and this was the first flashback that we got of Anakin, and this is a flashback that wasn't set up throughout the series, but they used this just to tell this story, and they used it in a brilliant way with that juxtaposition of scenes and situations. Brilliant use of storytelling. And so Obi and Anakin, if you don't want spoilers, turn away in 3, 2, 1. So Obi and Anakin are in a lightsaber training duel on Coruscant, and this entire duel is the setup for Obi-Wan and the leading story arc that ties in with Tala to remind Obi that there needs to be a fight. But the way that Obi-Wan uses this flashback to drive his thoughts and decision making is brilliant. Now, Reva. Now, this was the most surprising story arc and setup for me, and the one that was the most satisfying apart from Vader and Kenobi story arc. And this episode satisfied the why for me with Reva. And she was the most polarizing character for me because I was always asking myself, why is she there? What is her motivation? But in this episode, all that was answered. And although I don't want to give away huge spoiler leaks, again, it was all set up. Now, There were parts of her setup that could have been done better in this episode, partly in how she got to this point. Okay, I have to give a spoiler. If you don't want to know, turn away or turn this off in 3, 2, 1. Okay, the fact that Anakin as Vader stabbed her with a laser sword through the chest and she survived. Okay, I found that kind of questioning, but if I just go with it, it was a satisfying arc and it gave her a ton of motivation as a character. But in short, to wrap it all up, this episode is a lesson on why we need story to be told, not just in one satisfying episode, but through a series, and allowing characters to be developed for payoffs like we got to experience in part 5. Not every episode is perfect, but the way that the storytellers allowed us to go on this journey and let situations develop, I think was the reason why I loved this episode so much. So let me know what you thought about this review, but let me know what you thought about what I had to say about setups, and let me know if you enjoyed episode 5 or part 5. And again, as always, thank you, and I will see you next time. If you're new to the channel, check out the welcome video, or just check out the next episode. And please subscribe if you want to follow the journey. And remember, there is no shame in being a Padawan.